Hey, let's rank the church holidays.
in terms of how fun they are, how festive they are.
Sure, we can start with fun, and then I was
Fun.
thinking more of theological importance. But yeah, let's go with your
Okay.
idea.
But I think that the two correspond. Actually, I have the most fun at Easter. I really do. It's the most fun for me.
Okay, well, good. Well, that happens to be the most important, so that's good.
Yeah.
I I'm a Christmas guy. It's not as theologically important as Easter, and we could definitely dive into that. But I got Christmas lights behind me. It's June. I'm not ashamed. I leave them up year round. I like lights. I'm a child of the light. I like daylight savings time. This is great. It's light till 9:15, 9:30 out.
Yeah. Absolutely. I got you. Uh, so Jesus Christ is the light of the world. The light dawns at Christmas. It's good. It's good, and the fact that it comes in the dead of winter too. That's really encouraging. It's an encouraging holiday in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Christmas hymns are the best. Just the tunes, and I mean Easter hymns are great too, but I think the music at Christmas. But isn't it funny that the two go hand in hand? Like Christmas hymns and Easter hymns, there's overlap. So Handel's Messiah, not a hymn,
Hmm.
but certainly played at both. And then Joy to the World, everybody knows the story of that, right? Easter hymn, but now we sing it primarily at Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's making me think about the kind of like artificial separation between Christmas and Easter. They really are of one piece, and that's why we call it the festival. The festival season of the year, right? So in First Timothy, for instance, when Paul talks about the mystery of godliness, the first thing is he was manifested in the flesh, right? This is the core. In fact, and in some ways, it's the greater mystery, because like God can clearly raise people from the dead. He gives life and he takes away life. So like plainly speaking, raising Jesus from the dead is not it's not as much of a spectacle, let's say. It's not
Gee,
as spectacular
get out of here.
as as God taking on human flesh, right? Right. That it is more spectacular that God takes on human flesh. Don't you think?
So yeah, so that the infinite actually takes on the finite and
Yeah.
and confines himself in that way.
So
Yeah.
what, so do you reverence during the Nicene Creed, and if so, during which phrase?
No, because I don't understand the argument. I wasn't raised that way. I uh, so like if I ever want to I just look over at the guy next to me and I start referencing when he starts referencing.
You just are half a phrase after him.
I wasn't a Fort Wayne guy till my spring semester in my senior year of college. Like I always thought I was going to St. Louis. So
Yeah,
I
I'm similarly. I was an ELS guy, and I didn't make the sign of the cross until I got to Fort Wayne. I never done it before, so
this is going to be such a good segue because I want to talk about the holidays, but don't you find yourself doing the opposite of the crowd you're in? So if you're in a really low church setting, you start making the sign of the cross and prostrating yourself like practically with your nose on the ground. But then when you're in the chapel in Kramer, you're just standing straight up the entire time.
yeah. Why is that just contrarianism? Is that what it is, or is it the sense that um whatever is commanded, what feels commanded is going to become um what is it, a matter of confession at that moment.
Oh,
um
sure. So
yeah.
it's not adiaphora anymore. I'm I'm
Right,
forced to
right.
forced to confess this. I mean that's the Lutheran answer. I really do think it's mimesis, which is Gerard's big idea. So imitation works both ways, positively and negatively. And you could see this with you becoming a pastor. Your dad was a pastor. I mean, how
Sure.
how often is that the story? And on the contrary, there's just as many stories as guys who were not raised as Christians who become pastors, and really good ones at that, like Augustine. So you could see the mimesis, which means imitation, working in both ways.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. And then I think maybe, what is it, it's like, at some point, if what you're imitating, or the object for imitation, you begin to feel that it's superficial or something like that, then you're kind of by default great against it, right? You rebel against it.
Right, right, right. Okay, I want to give a definite answer on this list though. Church holidays.
Yeah.
So Easter is number one, and the reason why it's number one is because it presupposes everything else. Like this is the absolute new creation. The work is complete, and in order for Jesus to come back from the dead, that presupposes Good Friday. That means he died, and we can lump in the entire Passion together. It also means he already took on human flesh. The fact that God died and came back from the dead presupposes Christmas. So at Christmas, I'm not suggesting anything, but the job's not done. It's just beginning.
Yeah. Is this like, I mean, is it in terms of like the significance of the different parts of a story, for instance? Like obviously the most important part of the story is the climax. But without the beginning of the story, the climax doesn't make any sense, right?
Precisely. Now, which 20th century theologian said that Christmas was more important than Easter?
I'm going to guess Karl Barth.
You are right, and not the president of Concordia Seminary in St. Louis.
Karl Barth, the
The
theologian, right?
the theologian. I picked this up. I was reading Gustav Wingren offering a critique of Karl Barth. Really good book. It got me into neo-orthodoxy and all of its evils. But he was like, Karl Barth was the first theologian to say that Christmas was more important than Easter. And the reason he says that is because for Karl Barth, it's all about the revelation, and the content of the
Mm-hmm.
revelation doesn't matter. Who cares? But the fact that he took on human flesh and came to reveal something, that's the big deal.
Yeah. So what does he make of Easter then? Does it have any significance? I'm curious. I
I
wonder.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. I wonder if you could trace, just kind of like I thought about this with the doctrine of the Trinity, that you could trace the whole scope of heresies by emphasizing one person of the Trinity at the to the to the deficit of one of the others. I wonder if you could do the same thing here with the narrative of Christ's life, death, and resurrection, by birth, death, and resurrection. So if you emphasize one over the other, you miss out on the whole. For instance, the Lutheran proclivity would be to genuflectet crucifixus est, to emphasize Good Friday at the expense of, for instance, the long green season in which Jesus is teaching us what the sanctified life looks like, right?
Yeah, I mean, Luther, he just wants to talk about faith. And he says, well, if we've got time to talk about love, we can just leave it at the end. But I don't really have any use for that.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think you're right.
that's right. So do you put Christmas second to Easter then? Easter then Christmas?
Yes. Yep, Easter and then Christmas. And then I think number 3 has to be what we observed yesterday, which is Trinity Sunday.
Not Pentecost, Trinity Sunday.
Well, so Pentecost comes before Trinity Sunday, but if you only emphasize Pentecost, that's like you take one person to the Trinity. So why take one when you can have it all?
All right, fair enough. I mean, we sang a Pentecost hymn as the hymn of the day for Trinity Sunday. Come, Holy Ghost, Creator blessed.
We sang that on
Yeah.
Pentecost.
Okay. Okay. Huh. Interesting. Well, and then
But
John 3, was John 3 your text for Trinity as well?
no, that is one of the readings. Trinity Sunday is so funny because the readings, I feel like there's one superior reading, and it does fall under the 3-year, and that's Matthew 28 because you have the Trinitarian
Mm.
name there. We had John 8 yesterday, which starts off with the Jews accusing Jesus of being a Samaritan and having a demon. It's a very
Huh.
interesting Trinitarian text, and the argument is about who's their father. And Jesus says, I know him, but you don't know him. So there's definitely something there to work with. And I think it's fun because I love the accusation that they throw at him. Are we
Are you sure
not
that
right?
wasn't given? Are you sure that wasn't given by CPH as a Father's Day text? That wasn't actually a Trinity text.
That's yeah, maybe I got it mixed up. I mean, they sent the Father's Day bulletins. They're like, here's a Sunday. Just skip Trinity Sunday. Here's the one of 20 programmatic Sundays you can follow.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But the thing to notice here is you might think, well, Trinity Sunday should be the most important thing because that defines who God is, and what could be more important than that? And you could follow that rationale, but the reason why we don't do that is the only way you get to Trinity Sunday is through the incarnation, death, and resurrection of Jesus.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. The three persons of the Godhead are revealed in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, precisely. And then
Hmm.
fourth, so I'm comfortable putting Trinity Sunday and Pentecost together because it's talking about the
Fair enough.
Godhead. And obviously, I mean, Pentecost might emphasize more the work of the Holy Spirit rather than the person, but you don't want to ever divide the person and the work. They go together. I mean, the question is, why does God love us? Answer, because he is love.
Sure.
Right? So who he is determines what he does. Number 4, then I want to put All Saints Day as number 4.
So, okay, go ahead and say why. I'm trying to think of how like, so once you've exhausted these, how would it be? Not messianic, but like festivals related to the person of Jesus. Okay. So what's the next category that you're going to? But go ahead. Tell me why.
Okay, yeah. So you start off with what's revealed, and that's the person of Jesus. So that's 1 and 2. 3 is who God is. 4 is who God's people are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking about the flow from Trinity to Trinity One in the 1 year lectionary, and that's what I was seeing. I'm just contemplating that. So so Trinity, you have the revelation of who God is, Father, Son, and Spirit, and baked into that, or rather emerging out of that, is this relationship of love between the Father and the Son. Right? That's the. There's no analogy for the Trinity, but there is this description of love.
There's,
You know,
there's lots of
trying to
analogies for
say
the Trinity.
no legitimate analogy for the Trinity. But then so for us in Trinity One, the texts in Trinity One are well, the gospel lesson is the rich man and Lazarus, and First John whatever 4, love your brothers. We love because he first loved us. And so the life, the divine life has its, how do you want to say it, like natural or necessary outflow in the life of those who believe, those who are incorporated into Christ. These things are not, they're not um, accidental, not incidental. Like, oh, we've got a beautiful car, right? So God is a Lexus. It's this beautiful Lexus, and then the people of God are like a great accessory. It's like he's got heated seats. It's like it's not like that. It's actually a part of the essence of the vehicle, right? So whatever, that's a terrible analogy, but
No, I mean, go with it. So Lexus, Japanese luxury car. So what are you saying about God?
I don't know enough about Lexus. It's on my mind because somebody was telling me about how they upgraded from a Lexus to a Cadillac recently. That's why it's on my mind. But
Ooh,
but it's
I don't
similar
know.
to like how
I,
it
I
was
I'm
for
all,
this
I'm all,
person an upgrade.
okay. Fair.
She did say to me, at first she didn't want a Cadillac because that's an old man car. That's what she said. But then it was a very elegant ride. So, but the reason why this analogy is coming to mind is because very often people think, and this is directly connected then. Very often people think that children are an accessory to marriage. It's like we got married and we have a vacation home, or we have a boat, or we have careers, or we have children, we have a dog. Like it's one among the many accessorizing things to your marriage. Well, no, it's in fact the natural and you might even say necessary, but for a fallen, corrupt world, necessary extension of your marriage.
Yeah, so it's like the game of life. You played that right.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
You got the because so you got the car, and I don't know, what do you think? Toyota van. Oh, you drive a Honda. Okay, so all Japanese, great cars. We own 2 Japanese cars. So yeah, you're driving your Honda Odyssey. Great name for a vehicle, by the way. And that's right. You got now. Who's driving? Do you put the blue person in the driver's seat or the pink?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no other way to do it. So.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, but it's kind of an accessory because you do get a monetary value for each kid at the end of the game, right? So it's just a part of the general equation.
That's right.
You want to hear a joke I heard from a German national who grew up in South Africa last week?
Probably. I probably do want to hear it. Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty good. He goes, "Yeah, the French, they think that Adam and Eve were French because here they are hanging out naked in a garden."
It would have been better in his accent. It would have been better,
Oh,
but that was still
I don't
pretty
want
good.
to. But then he goes, and then the Russians. Oh, the Russians. They go, no. They're they really got it because not only are they naked, but they're told it's paradise, and all they have is a piece of fruit to eat.
My goodness. Uh,
So I thought that was pretty good, and you
Yeah,
could rip off
that's clever.
whatever nationality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So are you comfortable with that ranking? I mean, the question is, where do you put Epiphany? Do you just want to put that under Christmas? Is that fine? Can we
Or
join those together?
or Ascension. Ascension. I think Epiphany can go with Christmas. I think that makes sense. God in man made manifest. Those things go together. Um, yeah, especially if you have 12 days of Christmas. The Christmas festival culminates in Epiphany, right? And you could say the same thing for Easter, right? So let's lump Palm Sunday through Easter together as the other festival, right?
Yep.
But Ascension seems to be like it needs more. It gets short shrift, right? Ascension is the denouement of the story, you could say, and so you have to include it. You know?
Yeah, it's kind of funny though, because if you don't include the longer ending of the Gospel of Mark, only Luke records the ascension.
That's true. Well, Paul tells us about the ascension, doesn't he? In Ephesians, he gives us something about the ascension.
Yeah, and it's in Colossians too. I mean, I think it's important. I just think it's funny that it's relegated to a Thursday, and only
Okay.
like one and a half of the evangelists mention it. Now, certainly
Well,
Jesus mentions
I
his ascension in John, but I'll keep going.
don't think you can say it's relegated. That's a function of the. It's not like well, this one's not important enough to be on a Sunday. It's how God decided to do it. So.
Yeah, and he relegated it to a Thursday.
Okay, fine. So I mean, I would think I would want to keep Ascension in there somewhere, but I'm pretty comfortable with this. Easter, Christmas, Trinity, All Saints Day. Are we missing anything? I don't think so. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I mean, for Lutherans, I do like observing Reformation Day every year. I think there's I wouldn't mind adding that, somewhere down the list, because it's a reminder that church history is our history. It's a medical report of the body of Christ.
Do you think that then puts it in the same category, or is it superior to the other saint commemorations in the church year? Like I think commemorations are helpful. They're not going to be in the same category as All Saints Day, for instance, or the festivals concerning Christ.
That's right. Yes. So, I mean, you want to put like St. Lawrence's feast day at number 4, and then All Saints Day after that.
Yeah, right.
I like that guy. He was on the grill, and then he said, "I'm done on this side. Turn me over."
It's a great story. We need more of those stories. I've been looking. I haven't looked very hard, but I would love to have a book that just kind of recounts those martyr accounts, so that I can have those anecdotes ready to go. I've got that one, and then who is it who refuses to say that she's anything except for a Christian? I am a Christian. What's her name? Starts with a P. Let me ask her name. She says her name is I'm a Christian. But,
Oh, I am Christian. Yeah, I thought that was pretty
yeah,
regular. But
it is. Yeah, but just like what I remember being told in church history, whatever, one about it in particular. I
oh,
didn't take very good notes, so yeah,
it shows.
that's what the internet is for.
That's that's right. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Hagar for a little bit?
Yeah, I do, and I segue. So I brought up mimesis, this imitation, Gerard's idea. So I kind of want to do a quick run through of his thought, because he incorporates the scapegoat idea into his philosophy too. So people take all of their problems, and it's just really easy to relegate it to one person, even though it's the decisions that they made. And so what I see here with Sarah and Hagar, this is a situation of Sarah's own doing. And then she turns Hagar then into the scapegoat, sends her out of the camp, even though this is her idea.
Yeah, that's right. Which so the blame shifting thing goes back to Adam and Eve, right, from the outset. So Eve does the same thing, right? It was the serpent. I mean, the serpent had something to do with it, but she's the one who listened to him.
Yeah, Adam listened to the voice of his wife. Same thing here with Sarah and Abraham.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about the irony of the fact that, boy, there's so much to talk about here. But the irony in comparison with chapter 15, where Abram is concerned about having Eliezer be the heir of all of his stuff. And then in the very next chapter, he's prepared to have this maidservant, her offspring, be the heir, right? So Sarah is willing to do the very same thing that Abram was not willing to have happen in the previous chapter, right?
Right. So you brought that up. The numbers here, I think, are fascinating. That so if you look at 16:3, they were in the land for 10 years, and in 15 verse 13, God tells Abram that they would be sojourners, servants for 400 years. And so what's 10 years compared to 400 years? Oh, that's a factor of 40.
Right.
Wow, imagine that.
Huh. I mean, it has this reminiscence of, or not reminiscence, but it's what's coming later with the people of Israel, where God, you know, uh, calls them out of Egypt, and of course we get Exodus parallels here too with Hagar, right? So she's called out of her oppressive home and then she's rescued in the wilderness by the angel of the Lord. But it's for Abram, you've got this 400 years of wandering, let's say, for your people, and after a 40th of that, you're grumbling essentially. You're complaining already, right?
Yeah, it's good. There's so much to do with Hagar being an Egyptian too. And you know what Hagar means, the etymology?
I can't remember. I just read it, but I can't remember.
Sojourner.
Okay. I think there's a play on words there too. Hang on one second. I had just seen this. It sounds like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, all right. Sojourner, stranger. That's right. It's not. That's what it sounds like. Yeah. Okay.
But you have the definite article there, so it's ha.
Yeah.
So it's actually
Yeah.
it's the stranger or the sojourner, which I'm trying to make these connections here because what God told Abram back in chapter 15 that your offsprings will be sojourners. And I got to look into the Hebrew grammar, but actually in Hebrew it's singular. The word sojourner is.
Okay.
It's not
Genesis
plural.
15.
Yeah, in Genesis 15. So you have a singular sojourner, and all of a sudden now you have the sojourner in Hagar.
Huh. This is obviously significant, and it's. I'm thinking about how later, when God brings them into the promised land, or no, actually before then, when He's giving them the law at Sinai, a big part of the law is high regard for the sojourners. Why? Because you too were sojourners in the land of Egypt, right? So this concern for those who are homeless is a big concern for God, and it's interesting because you're going to be homeless, and then in this kind of microcosm, this is kind of like the ungrateful guy who's forgiven the massive debt and is ungrateful for it. It's like God's going to preserve you, sojourner, but what are you going to do to this woman, Hagar? Well, do with her whatever you want, Abraham says to Sarah, and then Sarah does. Treats her poorly, like Pharaoh treated the people of Israel.
Right. Huh. Yeah. It's mimesis. It's imitation all around.
So yeah, what is that? It's like father like son. That's always what it is. It's like father like son. You inherit it from your forebears. And that's actually another really interesting thing about this here is that there's a chance that Ishmael will become fatherless because he's put out with Hagar. So what happens to a fatherless man, right? I mean, it's devastating. We know, like, we know this in our world plain as day. Did you know, Prince, that, by the way, that under Obama there was like a government website, fatherhood.gov, this government initiative to like promote fatherhood. It's really interesting. It's like it's still out there, fatherhood.gov. We all know that you need a dad. And what do they say? What do they always say about your dad when they're encouraging dads? Just got to be there. You just got to be there because the kid needs a good role model, and presence is the primary thing. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. You have a really good metaphor on the farm for this.
Do I? What's my metaphor?
Your chickens.
I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah. What do you do when the hens are acting up?
Oh, you put a rooster in there with them. That's right.
That's right.
That's a long
Yeah.
time ago that I thought about that. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
when the rooster
it's
dies, the hens
really
get
good.
all in a tizzy. You got to put a new rooster in there. That's right.
Yep. Yeah. Uh, what was I? Oh, okay. Now what's driving uh Sarai to do this? Is because
Mm.
I'm trying to look for like the explicit promise of the heir, and I don't think it's explicit up to this point. I think it's implied, and I think they are sinning here by introducing polygamy into the equation. Um, but I don't think it's explicitly stated that through Sarai he's going to have a son. I mean, is it stated that way yet?
Well, I mean, I don't know that it would need to be stated um, in even for it to be considered explicit because the two are one flesh, right? So
Oh, sure.
the way that Abram's going to produce offspring would have to be through the one flesh, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like that answer because then I know then I can just say, yep, that's how it's supposed to be. I mean, it's obvious.
Which, but it's of course it's great, isn't it? Because it's like it's a great example because isn't that how this corruption of things always happens? Um, we sinful sin is the inclination to take good things that God has given us and corrupt them. So I'm thinking about 1 Timothy 4. All things are to be received with thankfulness, right? For God's word and prayer is what sanctifies things. So those who forbid marriage and and tell you have to abstain from eating certain foods, which by the way, John Gerhard thinks that when Paul's writing this in 1 Timothy, he's not writing about present heretics. He's writing about the Catholic Church that's to come. So it's great. Anyways, those who would forbid those things are denying the good things that God has given. Now, of course, what's so great about this is because on the one hand, you are sinning if you say the good things God has given me, I can't use them because I'm going to obtain a higher level of sanctification by abstaining from from bodily things, right? Which is Gnosticism. Okay, so abstaining from bodily things, I'm going to be a higher level of sanctification. So you enter a monastery and you're a religious because you enter the monastery. Okay, so that's one error. But the other error is to take the good things that God has given us and not use them in a sanctified way. That is to say, use them apart from the word of God and prayer, which inevitably leads to their perversion. So marriage and food are good to be used in a good and godly way. They are also susceptible to great corruption at the hands of sinful people, right? Um, and so this is exactly the way that we tend to think about the obstacles that God places in our life. Okay, so particularly with marriage. Oh, this isn't the working. This I got married, and this isn't working the way I wanted it to. So therefore, I need to do something about it, right? Whether that's like we're not in love anymore, and so we need to get divorced, or we can't have children, therefore we need to use destructive, unnatural technologies in order to bear children, right? It's the same thing. We do it today, and we justify it in the same way. Like, well, God obviously wants me to be happy and have children, right?
That's right. It's so freeing to have parameters set. You have to stay married. Figure it out. And of course, I
That's
mean
right.
that's such a law-based statement, I suppose. And it's like we're here to help you out, to help figure that out. And the answer obviously isn't try harder. Although maybe it might be. You know, I mean, because this has got to be the first thing. I certainly know people that try hard and they just can't figure it out. And then obviously the answer isn't try harder. But maybe when it comes to like really practical things, it's like maybe you just got to put in some effort. So if you want to be able to do 10 pull-ups and you're complaining about it, it's like, well, how long have you been trying?
Right. So this is also 1 Timothy 4. Bodily training is of some value. It's of some value, but it's useless if it's not accompanied by training in godliness, right? So the two things do go hand to hand. They go together if they're used properly, right? So try harder is great if your trying harder is governed by the pursuit of godliness, and that's often what's missing when you encounter like spiritual distress or like say trouble in marriage. It's kind of like you want the trouble to go away. Okay, But do you want it to be a godly marriage, or do you just want the trouble to go away? Because if you only want the trouble to go away, you could try harder all day long, and it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm thinking about sports, like this cliche that coaches all say all the time. You gotta actually love the process.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, and there's a helpful litmus test there. Um, what was it? Broughton just interviewed Joe Rigney on his book More Than a Battle. It's
Mhm.
good. It's a little. I've read the book before, and it's a little bit bloated. There's more in there than is necessary, but the basic one of the basic principles at the beginning of the book is if you struggle with sexual sin, your pastor needs to know out of the gate whether you're serious about dealing with it, and the seriousness includes like doing something dramatic. So if you got a problem with your phone, get rid of your phone. And if you're not willing to do that, then clearly you're not actually interested. You don't love the process, right? Doesn't just because. So on the one hand, um, uh, nothing's going to work if you're not serious about aiming at godliness, right? On the other hand, that's not the only thing that's going to help you because you're just kind of dealing with the external thing. Now you need, having done that, now you need to get to the root of the problem.
Right, right. They go hand in hand because we're not suggesting that you could overcome sin by willpower.
Precisely, precisely.
But if there is no will there, right? If you're not praying, Thy will be done, then nothing's gonna work either.
Right.
You,
Yeah.
you kind of look like Joe Rigney.
Thanks. Appreciate that. He's a good looking guy. Joe, if you're listening, you're a good looking guy.
We love you.
So, so Sarah, back to you asked the question or framed the question like, what's she after here? Did she have the explicit promise? I think she knew. She must have known that this was by God's promise there would be a child, right? But it's interesting because she's correct at first in saying, "Behold, now the Lord has prevented me from bearing children," right?
Yeah.
And the mistake is then what follows in that I'm going to circumvent what the Lord is doing.
Oh, that's really good. So you can have the right premise, but come to the completely wrong conclusion based on that premise, right? So God is love. This is probably the most abused premise there is, because
Right.
it's true. Like it's beyond true. It is the foundation for everything, right? And I mean, we love it. I mean, it says it in the Bible, right? So it's true. And we do this with all sorts of things. But then what we do is God is love. Therefore, I can live however the heck I want to live.
That's right. That's right. And so now, so make it a syllogism. What is we can do it. We can do it with that premise and conclusion, and we can do it with Sarah here too, right? So God is love. Therefore, I could do whatever I want. What's the this an it's an enthymeme. That's where you have a syllogism where one of the premises is missing. What's the missing premise? God is love. If God loved me, He would want me to do whatever. He would allow me to do whatever I want. Therefore, I can do whatever I want. Right? It's the missing
Yeah.
premise.
Yeah.
So how is it for Sarah? The Lord has prevented me from having children, but I ought to have a child. Or what would it be? Well, I mean, it's interesting because it's the same conflict that Abraham faces really in Genesis 22. The Lord has promised me a child, but the Lord is also telling me to hand over this child. And reason says, therefore, I must disobey the Lord. That's what reason says.
Oh, sure. Yeah, like a really basic um misunderstanding reason, I would say, because there is a higher reason which Hebrews brings out, and that's the reason of the resurrection too.
Yeah, right. Right. This new data point that isn't just like another fact, but it upsets the whole system, right? So it's kind of like the law of non-contradiction. Aristotle, is kind of like uh, is kind of like connected to this. The only certain things in life are death and taxes, and really just death, right? It is this it's as immutable as A can't equal not A. That's how death is regarded.
But then as soon as you can defeat it, that changes everything.
Yeah, everything changes. Yeah, yeah,
You
that's
want
right.
to hear this? Here's this really good Gerard quote. I'm reading through his book, The Scapegoat, right now. I think he probably sees mimesis probably in too many places, but he sees it in a whole lot more places than others do, which is very helpful. So he says, and I think this really applies to Sarah, there is no worse enemy of desire than truth.
No worse enemy of desire than truth. Does he have an example of what he means by that?
Yes. So I think this is in the chapter on John the Baptist. So Herodias desires his head. The truth is that John's a good guy, and the truth is that your marriage isn't lawful. That's the truth. Um, she desires though to remain in that marriage, and so what's getting in the way of her desire is John the Baptist pointing out the truth.
That's good. I was thinking about the very same thing with Nicodemus. So the thing that sets Nicodemus apart from all the Pharisees is not that he recognizes the signs while they do not. Everybody sees the signs. Everybody knows that Jesus can heal the sick, and that's, in fact, I think this is true. There's nobody in the scriptures who ever says, "Yeah, that didn't really happen." Right? We know that there's this lie propagated about the resurrection, right? But even his enemies, his detractors, acknowledge that he did the miracles, but their desire is that he would not have the authority that he does. And so the worst enemy of their desire is the truth that he does these miracles, which is why Nicodemus shows up, because he's like, well, these things are clearly true. And I was thinking about that confounding position that he's in. Is like, all his buddies are saying Jesus is an ungodly man, and he's like, but he did these signs. How can that can't be true?
Yeah, and Jesus gets in trouble all the time for healing on the Sabbath.
Right.
And if it's like, guys, are you really upset about this? Like, what's the point of the Sabbath? Rest, right? And what could be more restful than having a healthy body?
It's like you get mad at somebody because they gave you $1 million, but they gave it to you in quarters. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm fine. You gave me $1 million. All right, just be happy. Thank the guy.
It's like it's like a rich guy saying, with the tax code the way it is, you would do not want to be rich these days.
That's right. That's good. People are the worst, man.
That's right. Do you have any more on Sarah's motivation, or can we move to another motif?
Well, I think we could go on. I mean, it's interesting because, and this will be part of a future motif in 16, but there does seem to be this kind of basic dynamic between husbands and wives subsequent to the curse, right? Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, and he shall rule over you. Like these things that we laugh about as kind of men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and these kind of like petty marital conflicts, but it really is kind of like that's exactly what's going on. It seems to me in Genesis 16. There are some deeper things going on, but it's also just kind of a paradigmatic relationship in which an episode of unbelief and sin is wreaks havoc, right?
Yeah. Well, look what happens when the man is totally passive.
Right. Yeah. And when he imagines, as has so often been said, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy, or like, let's make sure that like, whatever she wants, that's going to be the very best thing for her, right?
Right. Yeah. So you're going to see this with Isaac later too, who's totally passive in like the whole story. And yeah, how does that work out with his kids?
Yeah. So, and it's interesting because to this day, and in this day, as more than in any other, one of the most offensive things you could say is that a woman doesn't always know what's best for her, right? She doesn't always know what's best for her. But that's true of anybody, right?
Yeah,
you don't always know what's best for you, right?
Right. Yeah, you have to have an outside authority. You're right, but I mean,
right.
It's a little bit on the nose, right? Because what did we say? 5 years ago? Women are always right.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, just inverse the sex, right? If men were oppressed, men are always right. Well, that's not true. What a stupid thing to say.
Yeah. And then so then you like the clarity. So given the fact, let's say that nobody knows what's good for them, men and women, the only way to proceed in life, the only way to live in godliness, or even just sort of I don't want to say success, but like to live a decent life is to be under somebody else's authority who knows better than you, or maybe doesn't even know better than you, but was tasked with uh, uh, tempering your sinful proclivities, right? Which is what a husband is for his wife, and Jesus Christ is the head of the man, right? That's the way it's supposed to be. So
Yeah, I'm thinking of the centurion. It's like, I too have authority. I say to the servant, go, and he
yeah,
goes. But then he
yeah,
recognizes, but you have the real authority here. I want to be under your authority, Christ.
yeah. That's great, because one of the conclusions I finished Jocko Willink's book about leadership strategies, and the whole book is interesting. It's super interesting because the whole book is not about primarily leadership strategy, but it's about being a good follower, being a good team member, which is what sets you up for being a good leader, right? When you recognize the value, like what it takes to be under authority, that's when you're equipped to take authority, right?
Right. Yeah. That's a really simple saying. Don't ever ask anybody to do something that you're not willing to do. There's a whole lot of premises there, like in the position. So it's like, I'm going to ask my wife to give birth to a child. Well, okay. Like, you can only stretch it so far, right? Because I can't do that. But the thing with the team is you're presupposing that you've been through it before.
Right, right. Yep. Okay, what other motifs you got?
Yeah. So, this is a really big motif. This is a man had two sons motif throughout the entire Bible. And it starts with Adam because you have the second Adam, which is Christ. So that's the two bookends. But then you have Adam, who's got Cain and Abel. And notice the firstborn, there's always something wrong with him. So Adam's the firstborn because he becomes a human before Christ does. So this is why Jesus is called the second Adam. Well, obviously there's something wrong with Adam. He sins. And then Cain, we know his faults. And then this would be the second or third, depending on how you're counting, kind of that motif. So Abraham has two sons. What's really interesting is that in Genesis 22, God tells him to sacrifice his only son. Is there anything more damning than that, than completely saying he's not legitimate at all? That's a problem with the firstborn.
Yeah, yeah. It's a problem. This is a good example of the problem is the father's fault, right? The reason why the firstborn son is corrupt is because of the father. Which, if you want to go back to Adam, we have to be careful, of course, and say it's when he takes Satan as his father that then he becomes a corrupt offspring of Satan, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, yep. And then Isaac's gonna have Esau and Jacob, the twins. And notice Esau's the firstborn, and there's probably others, but of course Jesus tells parables like this. A man had two sons, and then the parable of the prodigal son. So
Yeah, you get Jacob's sons, Reuben, Simeon, and Levi are all kind of wicked sons. So
right. So yeah, it all falls under that paradigm. The firstborn. The problem, I think, in the parable of the prodigal son is the firstborn is acting like all of these other firstborns. Now, Ishmael, I think, is kind of ambiguous. They do reconcile because they get together to bury Abraham,
mm-hmm.
and he's a wild donkey of a man. It's kind of probably the life of the party. But his descendants, so you have to play this all the way out through the descendants, just like with Esau, because they reconcile, but the Edomites are awfully wicked to the Israelites after that. Same thing with the Ishmaelites. They're the ones who are buying Joseph into slavery.
Yeah, is it like there are these structural problems, say fatherlessness, for instance. So Ishmael doesn't have a legitimate relationship with his father. He's his father's illegitimate son, and of course, when Isaac is born, then he's going to be put out, right? He's not going to be regarded as a son, like you said. And although in Ishmael's case, according to what the angel says to Hagar, he's going to be blessed, right? You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has listened to you. There's not much of a blessing there, right? His hand against everyone and everyone's hand against him. But at the same time, so he's preserved, let's say. He's preserved, but his offspring are going to suffer on account of his situation, right? So I'm thinking about, for instance, like it's both Hezekiah and Josiah, faithful kings, reform the kingdom. In Hezekiah's case, it's Isaiah who comes to him. In Josiah's case, it's Huldah the prophetess. Both say, destruction is coming. You will be spared the destruction, but destruction is coming, and your offspring are the ones who are going to suffer it, right? And this is, that seems to be the picture here for Ishmael. It's like he receives a promise. Hagar receives a promise, but it's kind of like the end of the road as far as that promise goes, right?
Yeah. Well, there's still a people, right? I mean, this is you can still trace their line. I mean, isn't this the modern day Arab states?
Right. This has always bothered me, though, and I don't quite know how to work it out, because it seems little consolation to me, doesn't it? That you get to be a nation, but a godless nation. Wouldn't it be better not to be a nation?
But there's still the opportunity to repent.
Okay, and maybe that is the redeeming factor, and then of course you get a light to lighten the nations. So God's mercy is available, in spite of the fact that they would have been better off not having been a nation. Yeah.
We briefly talked about this, I think, on episode 1, but do you want to say anything about the term Abrahamic religions?
I mean, so what does it mean? It refers to Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, all of whom claim Abraham as a patriarch. But it's used in the kind of world religions, religious studies kind of way to downplay the uniqueness of any one of those religions. They all have this. What do you call it when you tell a story or something is done in order to demonstrate the origin of a thing? Like Rudyard Kipling's Just So stories. I can't think of the word. There's a word for things that exist simply to describe the origin of something that is present, right? So it's like that's all it is. Abraham is merely, he's the common thread. He's the common trait between all of these religions, right?
I was thinking, the Saxon immigration, is that the term for it?
No.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
I wish I could think of it. Anyways, yeah. What else about the Abrahamic religions? I mean, it seems like a completely useless term to me, but
I think so too. Along with the term Judeo-Christian.
Right.
Because if we don't have Christ, what do you have?
Yeah, you have the worship of demons.
Well, that was harsh, David.
Well, I mean, I remember this came up at Wheaton College when I was in Wheaton. Not at the college, but I remember there was a professor who at the college who said something about the God of Islam being the same, Allah being the same as the God of the Christians and the Jews, and raised a ruckus at the college, right?
I mean, she was a Christian professor who wore a hijab during a holy month, right? Yeah.
Trying to be provocative, clearly, right? And then of course trying to you try to split hairs, or by argue it from a technicality, and say, well, we were talking about lineage here. We're talking about ethnic lineage or whatever it might be. It's like, well, that's not what's implied when you say that. And important is to recognize, go back full circle to Trinity Sunday. God gets to say who he is, and he says whose God he is as well, right? So, and he says it never more clearly than when he sends his son. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So, Lumen Gentium, get out of town, right?
Yeah, but have you read Large Catechism, Section 2, Paragraph 66?
No. Is that a real reference to something?
Oh yeah, that's the.
Hang on, what would that be?
So it's in the creedal part, and this was a big hugaboo after 9/11 with the Yankee Stadium.
Did you say hugaboo?
Hugaboo.
Hugaboo.
It was a nice syllabic. Sometimes you just gotta get the syllables out.
Yeah, no, I got you. I usually go ahead.
I mean, Shakespeare invented words. I mean,
that's right.
And
you are entitled. Go for it.
You're not Plato. You're not Shakespeare. Oh, you're not Socrates. Oh, gee. I know.
I didn't know it hurt you so bad. I'm sorry.
I know who I am. Um,
I don't
yeah.
remember this
So
conflict. Go ahead.
okay. So Atlantic District President participates in this interfaith worship service with Muslims, Jews. I remember exactly who else was there, and the defenders of him doing so cited the Large Catechism, where Luther is clearly making an absurd. He's making an argument from the absurd. So what he's really saying is, even if we did worship the same one true God, now. This is why the first edition of the Reader's Edition of the Book of Concord, there had to be a second edition because the way it was translated into English, it did make it sound like we worship the same God as
Huh.
the Jews and the Turks.
I did not know that. That's fascinating.
So a little bit of a joke. That's not what Luther is saying. I wrote a paper on this in seminary. I mean,
There you go.
this was a big deal back in 2001. Articles in Concordia Journal, and it
This
got
is
really technical.
so this raises kind of a practical question, and maybe could be a brief excursus on it, or we could take it up another time. But I was thinking about um, thinking about pastors and joint worship services, or say an invitation to pray. Because, for instance, what are you? Are you you're on the board for the Church Ambassador Network, right? Is that the
Yeah, advisory council.
advisory council? Okay, and so so you get an invitation to go and do a devotion for a group of people who are just like a group of guys. Great, like what share God's word with these people. How do you distinguish between that and let's take another instance. Your town is having a 4th of July or a Memorial Day ceremony, and they ask you, pastor, to come and say a prayer, and maybe or maybe not the local Methodist priestess is going to also say a prayer. Maybe at the end, you say it at the beginning, she says it at the end, right? Distinguish between like a devotion for a group of guys who are of various denominations, um, opening and closing a civic ceremony, participating in a joint worship service at Yankee Stadium. Um, what are the factors involved in the ethics of those kinds of decisions?
Yeah. So I do say the prayer at our Memorial Day civic service, but I'm the only clergy person publicly present. So I think that's an important distinction too. Once you start adding in different clergy people, that factors in another thing. So the situation you described, I would not be comfortable doing that.
So so that identifies then that, like, one really clear factor is the need for clarity. So not having ambiguity about whether or not you are confessing the same faith as somebody who clearly confesses a different faith than you, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the biggest factor. It just confuses it because what does it say if, I'm praying and then right after me somebody of a different faith prays. Now where it gets really into the weeds is let's say let's say that I open the service, and this would never happen, but I open the service and then a Wisconsin Synod pastor closes the service for the civic
That's a problem
ceremony.
for him, but not for you.
That's that's yeah, I mean that's a great Missouri Synod way of looking at it.
Yeah, we got to get a Wisconsin guy to call in during our open lines segment here, and
I
ask
really
him.
want to talk to Peter Prangy because I enjoy his historical work. So that'd be great. You can work on that because you've got a Wells background. Can you
I got
sing
a
the song?
connection.
Can you sing the song for me,
I can
please?
sing it when it's needed to make a connection. So don't worry, I can do that.
Okay, great. So we're in Genesis 16, and holy smokes, look at that. There's a well in verse 14. Beer lahai roy. All right, sing the song,
Yeah.
David.
We'll save it. We'll save it for another time.
Fine, but I'm just calling you out.
I was I'm asking this question, just to back up just for a second, about these different scenarios, because the kind of a simple litmus test is, am I communicating clearly, right? And this has been for me the reason why I wouldn't do a funeral for a non-member, is because I want to communicate clearly about my testimony concerning this person's faith, and presiding over the rite of Christian burial says something, and I can't contradict that. But the facts can't contradict that. So, but I have always said, and I will, like say a family, somebody in town, in the community, somebody dies, they're not members of the congregation, and they say, we need a pastor, we want somebody to come and pray with us, somebody to share God's word with us. Of course I'll do that, right? And there's a distinction there, because I'm not in the rite of Christian burial saying something that I don't know to be true or I know to be untrue, but I am sharing God's word, which is obviously not just. And one question would be like whether or not whether I would be doing that as a pastor or just as a Christian. In fact, like not under the auspices of Pastor Buchs, because my call is to minister to the members of my congregation. But as a Christian, I can minister to my neighbors without, just freely with God's word. I wonder if that distinction is important, if that's valuable. So they call you up for the civic ceremony, as Pastor Reber. Would it be different if it was, just as a guy?
Interesting the way you described the call, because there used to be parish boundaries, and you would be called to that place too, right?
A much clearer thing to deal with if you have a state church, for instance, and even if you don't ever come to church, you're still my parishioner, right? Then there's something different going on, right?
Yeah, this is a sticky situation because I want to defend some things too, like who's the Wisconsin pastor, Missouri Synod pastor in Wisconsin, who prayed at the RNC. Yeah. Like we can't be so unwilling to do public things either, right? We just have to have a clear confession. So if I get invited to pray at the RNC, I think I'm gonna say yes, right? What a great opportunity.
Well, and that's the thing, is that so it presents you with this opportunity, but it also presents you with this challenge, because you can easily imagine a Missouri Synod pastor, or any other pastor for that matter, praying at the RNC in such a way that what was communicated is, look, all Christian faiths, and maybe even all religions, are just the same, right? So like you can invoke God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in your prayer and do it in a way that makes it seem like everybody's just hunky-dory, everything's hunky-dory, right? And if you did that, you would clearly be in trouble, right?
Right. Yeah. So the guiding principles has to be clarity about what we believe, and then depending on the circumstance, it could maybe look a little bit different, depending on the situation.
And I think that's clear. So this is what I'm kind of curious about. It's like that's obviously one guiding principle, and in any given situation, there's obviously going to be, it's not going to be all or nothing. So you can't control what people perceive, what they think about what you're doing, right? So you pray and somebody doesn't listen carefully to what you're saying when you pray. I mean, they might draw the wrong conclusion. You can't control that, right?
That's every Sunday sermon.
Precisely, right? So just for the in the interest of making the argument solid, we're after clarity, but there is no such thing as absolute clarity, and so there's always going to be, like, you can't have that be the litmus test. It's only when it's absolutely clear, right? But I'm asking the question because I also wonder whether there's something else, another layer, that has to do with, for instance, the sanctity of Christian worship. That it's not merely a communicative thing. It does that. It's not merely about the content, but it's also about the fact that we are doing it. When we worship, we're doing a formal thing that is given to us by God to do, and so it's not ours to do with as we please, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so that's good. So you want to make a distinction between the public worship ceremony and then other ceremonies.
Yeah. That'd be a good way to put it. I think that distinction also has to be, and that's irrespective of how clear you're being. It's like, this is just by formal definition, it has to be a different thing.
Yeah, because what's so wrong about the interfaith service is it was clearly defined as a worship service.
Yeah, precisely. Right. So this is the lowest of the lows in Israel when you know, they have the Syrian, the altar to the Syrian god in the temple, and Ahaz is like, yeah, this is great, this is what I want. It's like, no, that's as bad as it gets, you know.
Right. Yep. Same thing in Judges when Gideon dies. They start a start a cult that combines the true religion
Yeah.
with Baalism.
Right. Sorry, I took us afield. Anything else about Genesis 16 needs to be brought into play?
Yeah, yeah. But I think we could probably bring it into next time because there's a good segue with how 16 ends and 17 begins. So Abram was 86 years old in verse 16, and then 17:1 starts Abraham was 99, meaning that Ishmael would be 13. So we're meant to make that connection. So that's a natural gap. We could probably touch on some stuff on 16 going into 17 next time because there's more to work with. Like the angel of the Lord. This is the first
Yeah.
appearance in the Bible of that. And then there's something going on with the springs. And then they get cultivated into a well, which I think, which is an interesting progression.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
and
we
then
should touch
the
on all of those things.
and then the senses. So Ishmael means the God who hears, and then Hagar, there's something going on with her eyes because she looks with contempt with her eyes upon Sarah, and then at the after that she calls God, "You are the God of seeing." So I think those three things we could touch on. They're all exciting. Yeah.
There's something there too with the presence of the well, and the betrothal scenes in the scriptures. You know, a groom finds his bride very often at a well, right? Yeah.
Did you meet your wife at a water fountain?
No, I did not. I met her in line going into chapel at college. So, I mean, we could metaphorically. How's that sound?
That's so nice. They met at the baptismal font and their eyes met.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, that's right. All right. Anything else? Or I'm going to click stop.